Hi witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It's me, your local chaotic witch aunt. And I think this video is going to hopefully be coming out on Giorno dei Morti, so buon Giorno dei Morti, happy All Souls Day. If it's not too late for you to do any of the things we're talking about in this video, because this is so you want to work with your ancestors or so you want to start ancestral work. This video has been planned for over a year because it is supposed to be timed with the release of Ancestral Magic, which is coming out November 11th, right in the Holy Dead, Mighty Dead season. And it's going to be talking about kind of some beginner concepts to start with if you are interested in incorporating ancestral veneration or ancestral work into your practice. And if you like what I spoke about in this video, I would recommend purchasing Ancestral Magic. This book is a modern witch's guide to folk traditions and reconnection. It focuses a lot more on some aspects of reconnecting to culture and reconnecting to ancestry that are many mundane, but it also has information on traditions, on culture, on different types of ancestors and beginning to work with them on familial spirits and deities and all that stuff. Of course, I am an Italian American, so it is very Italian American, but I am hoping that when you read this book, there will be other things that you can find in it that help you on your journey. Number one, who are the ancestors? Who are the ancestors? Who are we talking about when I say the ancestors? I think a lot of people assume ancestors are familial dead a lot of the time, but that is just one aspect of ancestors. Ancestors are not just your dead family, which I think is so interesting because a lot of people are like, well, all my family's dead. I can't talk to them. I can't get any information from them. Or I don't get along with my family. What do I do? Familial or ancestors are also adoptive ancestors, so found family, communal ancestors, or literally being adopted into a family. They are communal ancestors, so ancestors of our lineages, ancestors of our political affiliations, ancestors of our careers. A lot of times ancestors can also include saints or other mighty beings or holy beings. I kind of tend to keep saints as in a ancestral realm, but also over here as something separate from our ancestors. Plants are our ancestors. Animals are our ancestors. People we love who are our friends that we're not related to that passed on are our ancestors. People we have lost, pets are included on our dead and honoring our dead altars. Although I wouldn't necessarily consider them ancestors, but it doesn't mean you can't include them in what we talk about today. Ancestors are all of these things and more. I mean, I consider the tree in my front yard to be an ancestor. I consider the fox who visits me to be an ancestor and an ancestral spirit. I consider a lot of people who have passed on, who I'm really inspired by their work that they've done in the literature and activism spheres, to be ancestors. All of these areas are ancestors. For more information on kind of like all the different types of ancestors, and if you really just want a point blank period book on just ancestral work, I would recommend Honoring Your Ancestors by Mallory Vadeways as a companion to Ancestral Magic, because this goes a little deeper with our reconnective journeys. But know when I talk about ancestors, I'm not just talking about your dead family. I'm talking about all these other aspects of how we come to be and come into fruition. I don't know, maybe the isopods have something to do with it. Has anyone seen that meme where it's like calling on my ancestors and it's like an isopod chittering? That's what I mean with ancestors. I mean, I know a lot of people who even like land as an ancestor as well. The other aspect of this is recognizing your ancestors as the first step to beginning ancestral work. Who are you trying to connect with? Why are you trying to connect with them? One of the biggest aspects of ancestral magic in this book is recognizing your reasons for reconnection and wanting to find these people and honor them. And you can also honor and venerate certain ancestors, but not invite them into your home, which is why I will talk about problematic ancestors later in this video. And I have a whole video as well up on my page about problematic ancestors. I'm not sure what side it's going to be on. It's one of these up two corners. For me, one of the biggest forms of ancestral veneration we can do is not making a space for them, not That's a big one. Not necessarily like giving them offerings and doing a lot of like lavish gifts for them, but actually reconnecting with them, reconnecting with their beliefs, reconnecting with magic or folk magic, reconnecting with the land, unsettling settler colonialism, reconnecting with their stories, who they were as people, what we want to learn and what we want to carry moving forward into the next generations. Ancestral veneration and reconnection to me go hand in hand. And you don't have to go the full 100 yards of reconnecting to the magic and reconnecting to community and all these things to venerate your ancestors. But for me, I see this as a method of ancestral awareness, recognizing our stories, where we come from and who we come from, and holding on to those stories in oral form, in written form, understanding how we are where we are today and why. I think that understanding those oral stories, recognizing the histories of the people we descend from or the communities we descend from, is one of the most potent forms of veneration, of work. And in many ways, not everyone's going to say, okay, yeah, I'm 100% doing that. You don't have to do that. I think for me, I never felt like it was an option. I felt like I moved to Colorado and that was the path I was walking, and I kept walking that path, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm still walking that path to this day. I don't feel like my ancestors gave me a choice in many ways. And people are like, well, you always have a choice, but in the same way, it was what I felt called to do. It was what I felt that I wanted to do. It was important to me. So I did it and continue to do it to this day. Reconnection, this ancestral awareness, being able to understand oral stories, lineages, where we come from, also allow us to look at problematic histories that we carry. And I think Ancestors in Training who I love their content so much, made a post about this recently, like no matter what, you're going to have an ancestor that was like bad, quote unquote, or problematic. Because a lot of people are like, well, what if I don't have a good relationship with my family? What if my ancestors were not good people? Is it better for me, and how I was taught by some of the many teachers who continue to do this work, and who I continue to say, you need to take their classes if you're interested in this, especially Mary Beth Bonfiglio. To me, I feel it is important to be aware of those problematic things. And you may already be aware of it and be like, all right, I'm aware, I don't want to touch it. This is also a form of generational healing, of recognizing the harm that has been done in the past by people that are our ancestors, and being able to commit in this day and age to really, really leaning into doing better and being a better ancestor. Because what are we doing if we just want to love and honor dead people? We can. But for me, ancestral veneration has always been that step forward of ensuring that I'm not repeating harmful patterns that have been passed to me. For me, that's the ultimate form of ancestral work, is looking at our lineages, our communities, our ancestors, and seeing the harm and seeing the joy and seeing the good and seeing the grief and saying, okay, I'm going to hold it and I'm going to walk with it. And then when the time comes, if I need to leave behind some of these things, I will leave it behind. When we talk about reconnection, there are a lot of different methods that we can talk about. I talk a lot about accountable reconnection in this book. What it means to be accountable in our reconnective journey, and how we can sometimes overstep or misstep even when we feel we have heritage in a culture by, accidentally culturally appropriating or moving towards enculturation and attempting to claim enculturation in a culture that we're not in, instead of working to reconnect to the diasporic traditions that we have. For me, there are kind of a few aspects of this, and a lot of this is touched on in my book, including part 1, where we talk about history and homeland. Homeland being where you are now in relationship to everything else, and history being where you come from, who are you, your identity. And then diaspora, of course, is a part of this. We so often feel that want to belong to a culture, want to belong to something bigger than us, that we reach far back and try to pluck from something that we're not active in or not enculturated in. And this is why I distinguish a lot Italian versus Italian American. I made a post on this recently on Instagram, a reel, talking about it, because I don't think that just because I have Italian ancestors, does that mean I can walk around saying I'm Italian. I have Italian heritage, and currently I am an Italian American living in the diaspora. For me, this is always different, and of course it's going to be different for European settlers and descendants of European settlers and immigrants versus folks whose lineages were enslaved, or folks who were trafficked. And that's a nuance to hold as well, is that story is going to be different for you depending on how you look at your reconnection. And a huge part of that is knowing that story, knowing where we come from and when and why, if we are able to do it. And even if you can only get a few generations back, even if you have no one to talk to, there are ways and resources that you can begin a relationship with your ancestors and have them guide you towards it. There's also elements here of the folk and finding community. I think it was Feral Mountain Witch who made a Patreon post recently where like, you can't remove the people from folk magic. And community is, for me, a tenet of folk magic. In order to be a folk practitioner, we have to be in touch with the people. Not just the people of the magic we're practicing, but the people around us, the people we care about, the communities in our local sphere. We have to care about them as folk practitioners. Someone's going to be like, get your politics out of this. Folk magic has always been the magic of the people in the face of insurmountable obstacles, oftentimes marginalization or oppression by various forces. So no, I will not get my politics out of my folk magic. Thank you very much. Part of understanding this is recognizing who your folk are, who your people are, recognizing the people and the culture that you want to reconnect to. For me, this was Italian American culture, because even though I grew up Italian American, I spent 10 years away from it and away from the magic and away from the culture. I had little to no of these traditions that I grew up with. And so I actively had to begin to work to reconnect to those traditions, to implement them, to learn about them, to be culturally conscious. Even as we are living, I'm getting chills. You can tell it's Ancestor Week. Even as we are living in a culture, practicing a folk magic, if we are still active reconnectors, we always have the chance to misstep, especially if we're talking about a culture we're not a part of, that our heritage is a part of. Enculturation takes so long. I am enculturated into American culture, but also Italian American culture. It's kind of this third thing. And there was a post by Mary Beth Bonfiglio that she posted today that I want to share with everyone with credit, that I really liked. Culture has a body. Culture is alive. Within the cultural body are the living practices, traditions, languages, humans, more than human beings, etc. Cultural is also mycelial. Culture intersects, moves, migrates. Culture gives and receives from each other. Within that cultural body are complex practices and beings with agency. How do we know we have consent, or when we have consent, to share culture unconditionally, to revise it, to make it up? When in reciprocal relationship with culture, with elder and teachers of cultural practices, human and beyond, we learn to sense in and listen for consent when it comes to creating and sharing and passing on. When not in deep relational practice are we able to sense consent? Is sharing possibly diluting the magic? Is it possible to dishonor culture even with the best intentions? If magical practices are a part of living cultural body, are we treating the practices as if they were alive? Or is everything up for sharing and consumption? When and how do we know? We listen, we observe, we practice, we hold each spell, plant, mineral, object, deity as a generous being to keep magic potent, well, and alive, and practiced, shared with clear consent. We find teachers to mentor us. We remember lineages have held oral traditions. Not everything is meant to be written down. Such a gorgeous way of Mary Beth writes, and I sit there and I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever read in my life. So keep that in mind. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. When we talk about reconnection, it is about being in relation to things. It's about being in relation to the world around us. It's about being in relationship to our ancestors, to our elders, to our teachers, to our communities, to listening for consent, to asking for consent. Before I teach a class, I very often go in and run it past multiple teachers, especially if it's on cultural knowledge. And if there's anything that they're like, this is a little too deep, I take it out. Because even though I am, for a lot of people on the internet, someone who talks a lot and knows a lot about Italian American folk magic, I am by far not as experienced as other people, and I'm not as enculturated as people who have been doing this for years. At the same time, I'm one of the people. So when I talk about folk magic or what works for me, I'm making the delineation of this is what I do. This isn't necessarily traditional because it's adaptable. It flows. It works. I didn't even talk about Italian American folk magic until like a while into my reconnective practice, until I was actively taking classes, until I was learning and embedding it and embodying it into my life. And that is the biggest part of ancestral veneration we can offer. Looking at what we have lost, culture-wise, tradition-wise, folk magic-wise, and saying, you know what, I want to reconnect with that. Even if it takes me 15 years, even if I never know anything, even if I'm always going to be a student, even if I will watch things change in front of me and have to adapt, I want to do this. So you have bad ancestors. Everyone has bad ancestors. Like I said, Ancestors in Training made an amazing post about this. Even if it was someone, even if it wasn't like a big, terrible thing, there will be ancestors in your lineage that have caused harm, intentionally or unintentionally. And we have to come to terms with that. Knowing about it and making sure we commit to do better is a huge part of navigating bad ancestors. And for more on that, for problematic ancestors, I have another video because I feel like I've already touched base on that quite a lot. That's like a 40-minute video. But if you're interested more in that, you can be there. When we talk about ancestral memory, ancestral devotion, and ancestral dedication, we're talking about tapping into our body as a living, breathing altar, as something that holds history. All of the teachings we've been given, all of the people who have loved us, all of our family members or found family have affected us and changed us. And therefore, we carry them with us. Our ancestors are inside of us, and the first step to talking to them is learning how to sense into them and where they are in your body. Learning to sit with it and really kind of, for me, the way I learned to do this was with flower essences and plants, because it allowed me this felt sense and this attention to felt sense that I hadn't had before, because the world is so loud. So how am I supposed to hear this really subtle or feel this really subtle energetic shift when it happens? For me, working with flower essences under Lisa Fazio was how I learned how to listen to my ancestors. Those memories, the amount of things that I had come to me directly from my ancestors that I later got confirmation on from someone else practicing, the list is insurmountable. In dreams, in waking hours, in small nudges and pushes and communications and things falling off shelves and voices popping into my head sometimes, they are there to talk to you and to help you remember. In many ways, this also hails back to the devotion versus dedication that I talked about in a video at the beginning of this year. Devotion, you can devote yourself to anything. Dedication is showing up for this every day. It's committing to doing the work. It's committing to reconnection. It's committing to saying, okay, I want to do this. And for me, that was the step I took. And I continue to take. I continue to choose it every day. It's a relationship we are building with them. I am waking up in the morning and saying, I want to reconnect. I want to do ancestral work. I want to reconnect. I want to do ancestral work. And another aspect of this is veneration. Beginning to set up a space for them. Talking to them is a huge part of this. Giving them offerings. Sitting down and having a cup of coffee or a cup of wine with them. If you don't drink, coffee's fine. I sometimes will do a wine and dinner chat with my ancestors. Sitting down and committing to saying, I want to hear your stories. I want to know what you've lost and what you want to tell me. And that dedication is one that can show up in doing crafts for them. It can show up in cooking for them. It can show up in celebrating holidays that they used to celebrate. It can show up in setting up an altar and giving offerings, or sitting down it every day and pulling cards. It can show up as working with ancestral plant allies. It can show up as all of these things all together, fused. And the place I usually recommend people start is try to talk to community members, try to find teachers, try to find people who are living, who can help guide you on this path. You know why? Because another aspect of ancestral veneration is living ancestors, living people. The living people of your culture, of your community, of the practice you're working to reconnect to. You can have a fantastic relationship with the dead and not know a single thing about the community that they want you to be in, or that you are from, or that you're trying to reconnect to, and you will still have so much to learn. Part of this path and part of walking in reconnection, part of ancestral veneration, is reweaving ancestral ways of being, reweaving community, reweaving how to sit and listen and be present with teachers and elders and give respect to them, how to learn under them, how to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I'm going to do better next time. Learning and connecting with living people is one of the most vital aspects of reconnection to me. We cannot reconnect to a living, breathing culture if we have no connection to the living, breathing culture. How are we going to sit here and say, I know things about this culture that my ancestors told me? They're dead. They haven't been around for a while. Culture changes. Culture shifts. It adapts. It grows. We have to sit with it as it does so. Does that mean that we completely ignore the past and history and say, this is how it is now and it's how it's going to be forever? No, we weave them together. We take traditions that maybe we lost and weave it with what is accessible. We weave it with modern things. We weave our local active community, the communities we're a part of, into how we exist today. I know this isn't a lot of practical information, but this is the practical part, okay? We're talking about building an ancestral altar, offerings, and devotional activities. Let's pop open ancestral magic. Today, we're just going to be talking about human ancestors because these are all separate things in my book. So if you want to see more about connecting with saints, regional spirits, etc., this is a great way to do it. Creating an ancestral altar. It will look different for everyone, but this is the process I utilize to create mine. Decide on a location where you would like your family to be present. Somewhere communal, such as a dining room, kitchen, or living room, is always a great option. Depending on your tradition, you may not want to place your ancestor altar in the bedroom. If you do that, I would put a screen or put it in a closet. Gather family photos or other mementos from your ancestors to place on the altar. These could be items that belong to them or things that remind you of them. Fragrances that you associate with your family, jewelry that they owned, or more ideas. Choose items that you want to offer to your ancestors and incorporate into their altar. This could be a nice altar cloth, a candle, flowers, a glass of water, effigies of saints, or any other offerings you feel are appropriate. After gathering your items, find a dedicated space, table, or even a windowsill that has enough room for you to place your altar. If you want, you can cleanse the space with whatever materials you feel are appropriate in your journey. For me, this would be washing down the space with homemade rue water, or cleansing it with a rue bundle. Be mindful of handling rue if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. If you want to, you can dress your candle with herbal allies or write down your family's name on the side of the candle if it's a glass pillar candle. Spend some time deciding how you want to set up your items and family pictures. After you set up the items, you can do the following ritual to welcome your ancestors in. You'll need a white candle, a glass of water, and an anointing oil. Write out your family's names on a piece of paper or on the glass candle using a Sharpie. Anoint the candle if you want with an olive oil or another oil that is important to you. Place your glass of water next to the candle. You can bless this water with whatever prayer you like or verbally tell your ancestors that this is an offering by saying something like, I offer this water to my ancestors so they are never thirsty in death. For blessing my water, I use 9 Hail Marys. After lighting the candle, say out loud your intentions for your ancestors. This could be along the line of verbally declaring that your ancestors are welcome in your life and in your home. Some people choose to be specific with only allowing into their home benevolent and ancestors for the highest good. I think this is preference because of the amount of protection and wards I have on my home. I don't have a lot of ancestors that I don't like coming in. Another way to do this is writing out and calling their names individually to invite them in, and all other ancestors for our highest and most benevolent self or who are elevated. An example of verbal intention could be along the lines of, whenever I light this candle, I ask you to assist me in removing obstacles and bring your guidance into my life. There's also information here on creating a devotional oil. For activities for reconnection, give me a second, gang. I can't find the page that I want. Some ways that we can connect with ancestors include learning about ancestral practices, learning what food and drink they like or are relevant to the culture, learning about saints, deities, and ancestral plants and incorporating them in the practice, learning about traditions, and more. All of these are methods of ancestral veneration. For this Giorno dei Morti, start small. Set up a space for your ancestors, or if you already have one, give it a good clean. Sit down and ask them what they want from you. This, for me, is the biggest step. Your journey is not going to look like everyone else's. You may not end up fully practicing the folk magic of your diaspora or the folk magic of your ancestors, and that's okay. But I hope you know that your ancestors will always be around, they will always show up, and they will always just be there if you need them. For me, ancestors are my first form of defense, and forming a relationship with them, including setting up an altar, learning about their stories, learning about homeland, history, diaspora traditions, foods, drinks, and making those foods and drinks, learning ancestral practices and belief are all integral and important to how I engage with my ancestors. And I hope that everyone watching this video knows that if you want to set up an altar to ancestors of community, to adoptive and found family ancestors, to animal ancestors and plant ancestors, absolutely do so. This is an open-ended way to cultivate and create an ancestral altar for your practice and for your journey in reconnection. And like I said, there isn't a lot of practical advice in this video because all of the practical advice is in the book. I can't give too much of it. But all of those things that I'm mentioning, and ancestral plant allies, ancestral practices, reconnection, finding community, finding teachers, finding mentors, all of these things, including researching more about history, homeland, stories, etc., are in ancestral magic. And so this Giorno dei Morti, I hope that you connect with your ancestors, you cook them a meal, you light a candle. If you don't have ancestors you wish to work with, visit your local dead and make sure that you're spending time to take care of the ancestor that is you as well. Blessed Giorno dei Morti, and siate benedetti.